outside Salah. That is, if you just want to read the Quran, right? You just decide, okay, let me sit down and read the Quran. Yes, of course, it is a good act reading the Quran. And if you have to read the Fatiha, that is when you have to read the Fatiha with the Basmala as its first verse now. Then in doing so, you have to be careful in reading the last verse, which it has to now be Sirat al-Lazina An'amta alayhim Ghayril Maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. You match them together and then make them as one verse. And then the first verse has now been Basmala. And that is how you now have the complete set of 7 verses when you are reading outside Salah. But in Salah, it has to be Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen being the first thing to be uttered by you, not Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Oh Allah, lead us to all the true Islamic principles and concepts. So in a nutshell, we say Fatiha is existing in 2 forms. Just as you have the concept in chemistry that some elements tend to exhibit what is termed as allotrophy. Of course, Fatiha is the allotrophic form of the Quran. That is why you have the content of the Quran being 114. That is 114. 114. 11 simply tells you, I think the first chapter is Fatiha, it is 1. Then you now have 1. It's telling you that the chapter 1 is double 1. You see 114. It is 1. That means the Fatiha itself is double. There is the one with the Basmala as its first verse, and there is the one that has Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen as its first verse. So it is double. It is in allotrophic form as it is in the field of sciences. So when it is said to you, Qala Rasul, don't ever reject such. So if Abu Huraira could give the hadith that the first verse the first verse of Surah Al-Fatiha is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and it says it is from Rasul, we accept it. But the story is, everything that you see coming from Muhammad Rasulullah is something you have to really, have the good thought of. You have to have the good reasoning. You don't say, oh, since it is only one person that has presented such a hadith, and we have about 10 or more people giving a particular hadith which is saying different thing from what the only one that was captioned from one person is saying, that we don't consider number. As long as it is Qala Rasul, it is Qala Rasul. The only thing is you have to apply the two. You see, everything goes in terms of condition. It is conditional. It's just like when you have the series of chemistry, the chemical reactions, like if you have the carbon undergoing reaction with what? The oxygen. When you have the plentiful supply of oxygen, when you have the plentiful supply of oxygen, then carbon will react with the oxygen to form water, to form carbon dioxide. And when you have the limited supply of the of the oxygen, then if the supply of oxygen is limited, then instead of forming carbon dioxide, there will still be reaction, but it will lead to the formation of carbon dioxide. And that is how the religion is. It is conditional. If this happen, then this is what we do. If that happen, then this is what we do. That is how the religion is. Oh Allah, lead us to all the true Islamic principles and concepts. So after the Dua ul Istiftah, right, you also say the A'udhu billahi sami'il alim minash shaitanir rajim min hamzihi wa nafthihi wa nafsihi. Then that is when all this has to be done silently. Your Dua al-Istiftah is silent. After the Takbiratul Ihram comes the Dua al-Istiftah, then you do that all in silence. Then if it is a salah that involves you reading an open, you're making the reading to be open, like in Salat al-Subhi, Maghrib, and then Isha, right? So if you have to utter anything first aloud, it has to be Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So that is how the Fatiha is. So I'm going to read now the Fatiha in the true nature it should be read during Salah. Now by the time you do the Takbiratul Ihram, Allahu Akbar. Then you recite the Dua ul Istiftah. Right? You recite the Dua ul Istiftah, and then you come to the recitation of the Fatiha. I say there is the Dua ul Istiftah is also to be performed in what? Silent. It has to be a silent recitation. And that was why even the disciples had to ask the Prophet that you keep maintaining silence after the Takbiratul Ihram. We want to know what is